I always double check everything anyone has done that has been asked by me. Like, for instance, when I was a police officer, I never relied on anyone to do my work for me. Although I was pretty horrible at paperwork, I always made sure it was correct before I submitted it. You must be sure that every investigation you do is right and correct. I was always told that by my coach officer when I started 24 years ago. He always said, make sure your paperwork is 100%, and you can ruin someone's life when it isn't. That has always stuck with me since day one. And I know everyone makes mistakes, but when those mistakes ruin a person's career and life, accountability comes into play. A simple mistake or bad investigative work can have a serious impact, not just only for the person involved, but for the person's family and trust of the public. Several years ago, I was sent to an undercover squad up in 32 Division, where I was tasked with investigating a crime ring who broke into homes and stole high-end vehicles. We called it Project Yellowbird. I was there for over a year when I followed and conducted surveillance on vehicles and suspects involved. Now, what I observed was a police service who really had no clue what they were doing. And I know I say this on most of my videos, but I can't emphasize it enough. The Toronto police lack the training. I know this firsthand. These criminals knew who we were. They were always 8 steps ahead of us, and none of us were trained in surveilling these people. None of us. No one had the training. It was like everyone knew this, but faked their way through the year. It was a complete joke. And to top it off, the Toronto police seemed to never share any information with any other police service, as they want to get all the credit where arrests were made. It was quite obvious. So I eventually returned to my home unit, 53 Division, where I continued as a road cop. And I have to tell you from experience, 53 Division is the biggest joke when it comes to investigative work. The major crime unit thinks they are the elite, but in fact, they screw up most of their investigations and end up looking like fools because you are placing imbeciles into positions they know nothing about. And it's funny because you'll see these people in the office and they give you major attitude and think they are the elite, but they're the most stupid people you could ever meet. Case in point is the video I'm about to show you today and how the Toronto police ruin people's lives without consequence. And this has to stop. And we've seen this time and time again. And the last huge one was with Umar Zamir, when they immediately convicted him of first-degree murder when he was, in fact, innocent. Let's get into the video.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us. I'm pleased to be here today on behalf of the Toronto Police Service and 53 Division to announce the results of Project Poacher, an auto theft and revinning investigation. In January 2024, the 53 Division Major Crime Unit, led by Detective Dan Kraehling, initiated Project Poacher. Their work has led to 4 arrests, 28 charges laid, and over 100 stolen vehicles linked to the accused, worth approximately $9.5 million. I'll now turn it over to Detective Kraehling, who will provide the details of this scheme and the immense efforts behind this 5-month investigation. I want to thank him and the 53 Division Major Crime Unit for their relentless work in dismantling this organization, which was contributing to the ongoing auto theft issue in our city and ultimately putting our communities at risk. Detective Kraehling.
Thank you, Inspector Nichols. So the purpose of Project Poacher was to identify and arrest members of a suspected auto theft group responsible for reventing stolen motor vehicles within the City of Toronto. As the project progressed, we learned that the suspects were conspiring with a former Service Ontario member. This former employee was allegedly being paid by members of this group to provide clean vehicle documents and plates in order to disguise stolen motor vehicles, making them appear legitimate to unsuspecting buyers. It's alleged that the suspects would provide the former employee with vehicle identification numbers from vehicles that had previously been sold or exported out of the country. In exchange for money, the former employee would then create new, legitimate-looking vehicle registrations and license plate for these clean VINs. These falsified documents were then used to re-VIN the stolen vehicles, effectively disguising them and making them appear legitimate. The stolen vehicles, now with new identities, were sold to unsuspecting buyers or used in other criminal activities throughout the city. Some vehicles were even registered to non-existent or deceased individuals in an effort to confuse their detection by law enforcement. In May of this year, we executed 7 criminal code search warrants throughout the City of Toronto and the GTA on residences, commercial garages, and vehicles. In total, members of this group are responsible for revinning over 100 stolen vehicles to date, worth approximately $9.5 million. Throughout the investigation, from that 100, we have recovered so far 21 stolen revinned luxury vehicles, valued between $1.5 and $1.8 million. I also want to thank the members at 53 Division Major Crime Unit for their dedication and this hard work in this complex investigation. Their commitment has been crucial in addressing these crimes, and because of their efforts, we continue to work to enhance the safety of our communities. Thank you. I'll now take any questions.
We turn to the fallout from a CTV News investigation. Crown prosecutors have dropped charges against 2 car salesmen accused of selling stolen cars.
This after W5 showed some of the charges didn't add up. CTV's John Woodward has the details.
Mr. Botchnik, the Crown has no reasonable prospect of conviction.
That message from Crown prosecutors, a relief for Harris Botchnik. He's now won his fight with the criminal justice system.
It was botched from the word go.
Botchnik and fellow car salesman Fatty Zito faced almost 200 charges between them out of Project Warden. Police accused them of selling more than $2 million worth of stolen cars out of this Toronto dealership and covering it up by faking Carfax vehicle history reports.
The dealership's own funds were then used to buy the vehicles, which were fraudulently presented as legitimate.
The charges laid at the peak of a vehicle theft crime wave that prompted many arrests as well as progress in stopping stolen cars at the ports. When W5 did the homework with the dealer's records, we found evidence some cars were stolen, at least 3 buyers who couldn't get insurance, and 12 cars whose vehicle identification numbers were listed as being exported out of Canada before they were sold in Toronto. We also found proof that those Carfax reports could not have been altered. The ones that were provided in the sales actually matched the ones that were issued by Carfax. This former Toronto police detective said those reports could have been a big piece of evidence that linked the salesman to the crime. Without that, the Crown told Botchnik, there was no reasonable chance of conviction in the case.
What seems to be clear in this particular situation is that not all those I's were dotted, not all those T's were crossed.
There were 176 charges withdrawn. There was no evidence of it, and I submit from the first day on, myself, the co-accused, that nobody had any part in this. Everything that we did was above board.
And who had his name and reputation dragged through the mud by Toronto police.
Stolen vehicles were falsely registered to individuals that were not listed on the sales documents.
In all, 176 charges were laid against Botchnik and his colleague Fatty Zito, who worked in tandem at a Mitsubishi dealership in Scarborough, securing and selling luxury used cars to customers across the GTA. Police allege the men were committing fraud by knowingly selling stolen cars and trucks and altering vehicle Carfax reports and documents to cover their tracks.
I submit from the first day on, myself, the co-accused, that nobody had any part in this. Everything that we did was above board.
Ultimately, the Crown dropped all 176 counts against them following a review of what Botchnik calls a shoddy investigation into the alleged fraudulent car sales, totaling about $2.2 million.
Obviously, it's been a shock as to how shoddy it really was.
Botchnik says he kept all the documents to prove his innocence. Now he's taking aim at police who investigated him for months prior to charging him last November. Since then, Botched says several banks have cut ties with him and his credit rating has taken a hit. He wants police held accountable, saying he's lost hundreds of thousands of dollars due to false allegations.
I think part of it was a lack of understanding on the investigator side. They were looking at the wrong document. It may have been the right Carfax report, but it was the wrong report number, it was the wrong date. Once we were able to show the correct documents and that they weren't doctored, they weren't altered, everything fell into line pretty quickly.
Toronto police maintain, quote, "The Crown's decision does not negate the reasonable grounds upon which charges were laid or the validity of the charges related to Project Warden."
You can see that the report that
Botched says had police spoken with him, they never would have charged him in the first place.
We're able to now show that every single document that's been floating around has been authenticated. It is the correct document. Nobody would ever tamper with or alter that, especially under my watch. And as I've said from the beginning, for one simple reason, I was raised better than that.
Botched saying he now wants his dealer's license reinstated so he can get back to doing what he loves, getting customers behind the wheel of their dream car.
I have spent half my life in courtrooms, testifying on cases I have been involved with. All cops make mistakes. It's part of the job. When those mistakes begin to ruin people's lives, then the police officer should be investigated, charged, or fired for negligence. This was a year-long investigation. This wasn't something that was investigated overnight. This detective and Inspector Nichols had ample time to get their facts straight and conduct a proper and thorough investigation. So my advice for these two innocent men would be to sue their asses off. Sue Inspector Nichols and sue Detective Kraehling for negligence. They ruined two individuals' livelihood, their reputation, their children's reputation, their family's reputation. We cannot just let these two just walk away from this without consequence. They must be held accountable. But as we know, the Toronto Police promotes imbeciles who screw up like Inspector Nichols, who was just recently promoted to superintendent. Yeah, superintendent, where she will now run an entire Toronto Police Division, which is 13 Division. Detective Kraehling should be demoted and sent for retraining and never be a detective again who investigates these type of crimes. And this, folks, is why I try and bring you the truth on every video I produce. So if you're innocent and have been charged with a crime and want to pursue your innocence, please contact me at madlabpress88@gmail.com. It's Mad Lab Press. See you in the next one.